Hey Dog Pros, Josh from Digiwoof here, and welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to create your forms and surveys. And so to jump right in here, I am in my Clicks account. We are going to go to Sites, and then we're going to scroll over to Forms as well as Surveys. Forms and surveys are more or less interchangeable in a lot of ways, though there are a few key differences. Number one is that forms can be attached to calendars, whereas surveys cannot be attached to calendars. This means that if you want to ask specific questions when it comes to your calendar bookings, you'll need to make sure that you are creating a form specific to that calendar rather than a survey. The second and main difference is that surveys can have multiple pages. This means that if you have a rather long intake form, you'll probably want to use a survey. And so, for example, the first page might be client information, the second page might be dog information, the third page might be behavior information, and so on and so forth. Now that we have those few key differences out of the way, we'll want to go ahead and create our forms and surveys for our business. To start out with, we'll want to create the basic ones that we're going to be using. So for example, if you already have a website, you probably have a contact page where there is a contact form. So you'll want to go ahead and create a website contact form that you are going to put on your website in place of whatever you already have. And you'll also want to think about the other types of forms that you might be using in your business. These might be intake forms. They could be client waivers where we're having them check a box stating that they agree to a photo release, or you might be creating forms specific to your calendars. So for example, if you offer a discovery call, you're probably going to want to create a discovery call form that you'll then go ahead and connect to your calendar. And so to start us off, I am going to jump into one of our forms and show you how to make edits. So if I go into forms, into our form templates, we're then going to see that we have a bunch of templates here already for you to use. So for example, we have our basic contact form, we have some class waivers, a discovery call, an intake form, and then you might also be creating forms for your marketing as well. So you need somewhere for someone to sign up for your newsletter. And if you're offering any lead magnets like ebooks or webinars, you're probably going to be creating forms for those as well. And so to keep it simple here, I'm going to go ahead and edit our basic contact form. And as good practice, I think it's a good idea to just duplicate our templates. This way you'll always have something to refer back to. So I'm going to name mine website basic contact form. I'm going to confirm, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on it to open the editor. And then we can see we have something simple to start with here. We have the basics like name, phone, email, dog's name, and how can we help? And then we have a button for someone to obviously submit. Now, if I'm not wanting something to be required, or if I want to require something, I can go ahead and click on the item and then use our checkbox. If I want to delete something, I can go ahead and hit the X here. And something to note is that you do need phone or email on your forms to make sure that you do not get duplicate contacts. Now, if I want to add additional fields onto my form, I can go up into the upper left-hand corner here, add form elements, and then I can pick from any of our quick add elements. So this can be name, email, phone, a button. We can also use our forms for selling products and collecting payment as well. And then things like address and any text or artwork that we might want to add to our form, like our logo. And if we're wanting to ask a specific question, we can go to our custom fields. And inside of our custom fields, you are going to find different folders that you would find inside of our client contact. I will note that you can create different folders of information and reorganize where things are as well. So for example, let's say I don't have dog's name on here and I want to add it. I can go ahead and search for dog's name, and then I can see that we have one thing in dog information, which is dog name, and I can drag it over where I want it to be. I can then select and hit required, and then I want to make sure that I am saving as I go. Now, let's say I'm wanting to add something that we don't already have in our folders here. So let's say I want to ask, where did you acquire your dog? So we can see that it does not exist. So I can go ahead and add a new field, and then we can pick from what kind of field we want to have this question be. We have single line, which is just a couple of words they might give us, multiple lines, which might be a paragraph, and then fields that we might want a numerical value only, and then options for choosing, such as being able to choose multiple things in a dropdown, a radio select, checkbox, a date picker, and then we can also ask for a file upload like vet records or a signature. So in this case, I'm asking, where did you acquire your dog? And that's probably going to be a single line of text. And actually, we might want that to be where they're choosing one of several things. So I'm going to select that and then hit next. I'm then going to add the field itself. I'm then going to select a group. And so this is where I'm wanting to store this information. And so I'm probably going to want to have this in dog information or maybe additional info if I don't care about looking at this that often. And then I want to give the options. I'm going to say rescue, breeder, let's say pet store, friend, family, and then anything else we might want to add. I can then go ahead and hit save once I'm done. Now that we've added that field, we can see that we can drag it over. Okay, so that's how we go ahead and add fields to our forms. And then we probably want to style this to our business a little bit more as well to make it look on brand. So the first thing I'm going to do is select the button. I can then change the text if I want, as well as how it's styled. So I may want to put in my brand colors here. And then I can do things like make the button rounded, and I can give it some more padding as well. I might want to put a shadow on the button to make it on brand with any other buttons on my website. And we can do a few other things like change the font, the size of the font, and any subtext we might have on the button as well. Now, if I scroll up and back out of the button, I can then go to our styles and options in the upper right-hand corner. We can then change the theme for one. So we're currently operating off of a very basic theme. I could decide to scroll through here and see if there are any that match my brand, or I can just go ahead and go to styles and work on this a little bit more myself. So I might want to make it an inline form so that the shorter fields get compacted together. If I'm using my form as a pop-up for a lead magnet or my newsletter on my website, I might want to use a full screen mode. We can change the input style. Instead of a box, we could have lines. And then we could do other things to our form, like get rid of the border. I might want to make the form more rounded. And then I might want to do other things like change the field color. And if we scroll down further, we can change our fonts and anything else about our form to make it more on brand. And once our form's ready to go, we'll want to go ahead and save. And if you have an already existing website off of Clicks, you're going to want to hit our integrate button. If you're having this form go directly on the website page, which you'll likely do with a website contact form, you'll want to keep it on inline. You will want to leave all of these things alone so it will always show, always active, never deactivate. And then you're going to copy the embed code and you'll be able to paste that code into your website builder. Some other things to consider before putting it on your website would be going to styles and options. We're going to go to options. We can rename the form here as well as at the top. And then when the form is submitted, we want to decide what happens. You'll likely want to have a message pop up to say, thanks so much for reaching out. Be in touch soon, or whatever you want to say. And then you can make this message look a little bit nicer too by centering it and changing some specifics about the font. And one more thing to do before we go live would be to go to our notification at the top left, and then we can turn on email notifications for when we get a new form submission. So you can change the subject that you would get when you get the new form submission, as well as the email that you want to send this notification to. And if you're not going to be creating automations for a specific form, then you could certainly turn on an autoresponder. Now, once we're done here, we're going to save. And again, you would take the embed code and put it on your already existing website. If you're planning on making a Clicks website, you'll be able to just use our form elements where you'll be able to pick from your existing forms. Now, if we want to take our forms a step further, we can also make them conditional. So for example, if we have an intake form, we may want to ask specific questions if they answer an important piece of information a certain way. So a easy one that comes to mind would be, has your dog ever bitten anyone? If they answer yes, we might want another question to pop up to have them explain. So if we want that to happen, I'm first going to add a form element. I'm going to go to my custom fields and I am going to search for, has your dog ever bitten anyone? If so, please describe. And so these fill-in fields aren't going to be the best for this. So we could keep it simple and certainly just have them answer this way, but maybe I want several questions to pop up. So what I'm going to do is just get rid of this. I'm going to add a new field, and it's going to be a single drop down. We're going to say, has your dog ever bitten anyone? We're going to put that in dog information. Yes, no. Okay, so I'm going to save. All right, I'm going to add that on. Here we go. We're going to make it required. And then we're going to add a few more fields. We're going to have it be multi-line. I'm going to say, please explain the incidents in detail. We're going to put it in additional info, and we're going to save. We're going to put it on the form, and then we're going to hide it. We're going to go to our conditional logic. We're going to have show hide fields. We're going to say, if has your dog ever bitten anyone is equal to yes, then show, please explain the incident in detail. There we go. And so this is just a very basic example of how we can use conditional logic. And then we could decide to say, okay, we want multiple fields to pop up when they answer a question a certain way. Okay, and so the final thing that we're going to do relating to our forms and surveys is create a simple automation to send our potential clients an email when they submit that form. So if we go into our automations, and I'm going to go ahead and go into our templates, we're then going to find our inquiries, and then we have form submission here. And for this one, I'm just going to explain how this particular automation works so that you can take it and run basically. So what I would want to do is, again, make sure that I duplicate the workflow and move it out of my templates. And then we can have this automation fire off of a form submission. So the trigger being when a form is submitted. And then we just need to be specific about what form is being submitted. So when the website contact form is submitted, we want all of these things to happen. So for example, we might want to add them to our client pipeline, which we'll be going into detail a little bit more in a future lesson. We might want to give ourselves an internal notification. And if we have our form notifications turned on, this may be unnecessary. And so in that case, I could decide to hit the 3 dots and delete it. We might want to give ourselves a task whenever a particular form is submitted, to remember that we need to respond to them or at least look at the inquiry. And so for this task, it's going to be respond to contact form inquiry. So contact name, submitted, a website contact form. We're going to say dog's name. Okay, so we're going to assign to a particular staff member and put a due date on it. And then finally, the biggest thing that we want to have happen is an email to go out to the client. And I think you should be really strategic about when you have these emails going out, especially for your initial inquiries. So yes, you could just have a basic email that goes out and says, thanks for your submission, or you can take it a step further and make it a little bit more personal and maybe prompt them to do something or show them some different things that might help them while they're waiting for you to get back to them. So for example, we can have an email that is personal for one in the subject line even. So your inquiry for contact dog name. So again, your inquiry for, we're going to go to our tag or our custom values rather, I'm going to search for dog's name. Okay, your inquiry for Fluffy. Thanks so much for reaching out about Fluffy. We're so excited to learn more about you and your dog. We've received your inquiry and we'll be in touch within the next 48 hours. If you'd like to book the call in the meantime, click here. Or if you'd like to learn a bit more about how we can help you and your dog, please find our ebook attached to this email. And I will note that we have additional trainings that can help you take this a step further as well. So for example, let's say you have a website contact form and there's a question on it that is, how can we help you? And it has selections for puppy training, dog training, separation anxiety, etc. Depending on how they answer that question, you could customize our automation here to respond to them in a certain way. So I won't go into detail right now at risk of overwhelming, but no, that is something that you can do with the system. All right, and the final thing that I want to go over relating to our forms and surveys before we move on to our next lesson is the ability to just take our forms and send them to someone. So if I go back to my forms, I can then go ahead and go into my templates. Let's say we've already made one of these and then we're wanting to send it to a client. I can then go ahead and go to my 3 dots. I can then go to preview. That's then going to give us a link for our form. So you can see in my browser here that I have a link that I can take. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that link. And then I can go ahead and go to marketing and trigger links. And then I could create a link here. So let's pretend that was my intake form. And so I can put that link in, I can save it. And the purpose of our trigger links is the ability to refer to these links quickly. So for example, so let's say we're talking to someone and we're wanting to send them our intake form. Within our conversation in the contact, I can go ahead and just add link, and then we can just pull from our trigger links being that intake form. I can then say, fill out our intake form here. Okay, so hopefully you will already have this process automated within the system, but in case you're needing to send a link to someone, that's how you could do it easily. All right, and so in the next lesson, we're going to go into our contracting system and build our contracts.